Alex said, like the itinerant actors of an earlier age, our outdoor stage was wherever we could land. Nevertheless, we persevered, even with social distancing and masks, a tribute to creativity. The monologues here are adaptations from films and plays. They have been adapted strictly for educational purposes, and certain liberties, a lot of liberties in some of them, have been taken for the creative process. The first production this evening is from Stage Door. It's a classic play by Edna Ferber and George S. Kaufman about a group of struggling actresses trying to make it on Broadway while living at the Footlights Club. Sheila Bialka is Mrs. Orcutt. She's the house matron, and she keeps the boarding house running smoothly.
Okay, Kay, can I speak to you for a moment, please? I won't take but a minute of your time, you know. I hate to bring up the subject, and I try my hardest to be good with you girls, but I do have my bills to pay. Anyway, I know you're rehearsing, but plays are not always successful. And, you know, this has grown quite large, this bill. Anyway, I was taking everything into consideration. I wondered if you'd mind just a little suggestion. It occurred to me that perhaps it might be wise if you could find a place that's a little bit cheaper. And, as luck would have it, I happen to know the place, the very place. Now, the girls are not strictly theatrical. And it's more commercial professions. And they're a little older. However, I think you'll find it most conveniently situated. It's on 49th Street, this side of 10th Avenue. Of course, you'll have to go and drop in and take a look at it, okay? Now, we mustn't get upset. It's just a little talk, and then we'll put it out of our minds, shall we? Let me see, a little smile, that's better. Well, you know, we both have our work to do, so think it over, bye-bye.
It never fails. He always gets applause. Well, our next presentation is a scene from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? It's a play by Edward Albee, and in this scene, Nick, a new professor of biology, has been telling his late-night host, George, about his marriage. George, played by George Zilligan, tires of TMI, and he starts in on his own personal story.
When I was 16 and going to prep school during the Punic Wars, a bunch of us would go to town on the first day of vacation before we fanned out to our homes. And in the evening, we would go to a gin mill owned by the gangster father of one of us. And we'd drink with the grown-ups and listen to the jazz. And this one time, in the bunch of us, there was this boy who was 15 and had killed his mother with a shotgun some years earlier. Oh, completely accidentally, without even the slightest conditions. I have no doubt of that. And this one time, the boy was with us, and we ordered our drinks. And then when it was the boy's turn, he said, "I'll have Bergen. Give me some Bergen, please. Bergen and water." We all laughed. He was blonde and had the face of a cherub. And we all laughed. The red rose in his cheeks, and his neck turned red. And the waiter told the people at the table next to us what the boy had said, and they began to laugh. And then other people were told, and the laughter began to grow and grow. No one was laughing more than us, and no one laughed more than the boy who shot his mother. After some time, everyone in the gin mill knew what the laughter was about. And they began ordering Bergen and laughing when they ordered it. Oh, and soon, of course, the laughter became less general. But it did not subside for a very long time. For always there was someone at this table or that would order Bergen, and a whole new round of laughter would rise. We drank free that night. We were bought champagne by the gangster father of one of us. The next day, we suffered. Each of us alone on his train away from the city. Each of us with a grown-up's hangover. But it was the grandest day. Of my youth.
Next, we have Laughing Wild, a comedy by Christopher Durang. Mary Zolli plays a neurotic woman striving to survive the chaos of New York. She's prone to violent outbursts and crying jags, and voices her anxiety and frustration while visiting her psychologist. Come in.
why he humped me. I didn't do anything. Everything is such a mess. Look at me, my hair's a mess, my clothes are a mess. I want to talk to you about life. It's just too difficult to be alive, isn't it? I mean, and to function. And then there are all these people to deal with. So, I went to get a can of tuna fish at the supermarket the other day. And there was this person, this man, standing right in front of where I needed to reach to get the tuna fish. So, I waited for a while, but he did not move, he did not budge. Actually, he was standing there, reading the ingredient list on each can, as if it was a book. Some book. Pretty boring book, if you asked me. But no one has. So, well, anyway, I waited for a long, long time, and he still did not move. And I thought about asking him to move, but he seemed so stupid not to have sensed that I needed to get by him. So, I asked him to move. No. I started crying. Yes, and you know what? I had this awful fear that it would do no good at all to ask him. He'd probably just say something like, "I'll move when I'm good and ready, you nagging." Well, then what would I do? Oh, so I started to cry out of frustration, and still, though I was doing it quietly so as not to disturb anyone, even him. And even though I was still sobbing, this stupid, insensitive man did not grasp that I needed to get by him. So I just did what I had to do. I reached out and I shoved him. And then I screamed, "Will you move?" Okay, so he stumbled a little bit, that's all. And he really looked startled. Oh, and then there was this child nearby who started to cry. And I was still crying. And by then I couldn't imagine what I would use a can of tuna fish for now anyway. So then I told the child, "Stop crying." And the man just stared at me as if I was this total raving lunatic. But then I had this thought. I could get a taxi! I could go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I need culture right now, not tuna fish. Not tuna fish. Do you understand?
Next we have When the Cooking is Done. It's a one-act play by Joseph Arnone. It explores the conflicted role of a woman in relationship to her family versus her identity and desires. Despite being a reasonable parent and loving wife, she has reached an unexpected moment of clarity in her life. Marza, portrayed by Chris Mack, is meeting with her lawyer.
I had the most amazing night of my life, and all by myself. But I was really upset because he called me at the last minute and he said he couldn't come, he couldn't make it. We had planned this for months. 3 hours max. No preparation. But he blamed it on work. He always blames it on work. Well, I was so mad and I was ready to go. So I just hung up the phone and I left. And I walked out into the night and I got to the train. Suddenly I felt different somehow. Like I was in the shadows. And I felt free. My speed of the train and its energy. Oh, that energy. I got to the theater. I sat down. I watched the play. I left at intermission. Not because it was a bad play. It was one of the best plays I've ever seen in my life. But I didn't want it spoiled. I wanted to invent the end. I knew those people intimately. I knew the father and the mother and the sisters. They were my people, and I didn't want their ending to be spoiled. I wanted them to be happy, to be brave, and to love. So I walked into the night, and I walked, and I walked, and it suddenly occurred to me, I could reinvent my own life if I had the power to change the people's lives in that play. I could write my own narrative of what I wanted to do and the things that I have never done. After all, how do I want my play to be and to end? Life is just theater, is it not? And when we write our narratives, if our narrative has been wrong, it needs to be changed. We have to have the power to change it. So I've been thinking about that for the last few days. And I've decided it's exactly what I'm going to do. Change my narrative. Write what I want to do and do only those things that I want. So, file the divorce papers, and I don't give a what anybody thinks.
Feet. It's a play from Talking Heads, actually a monologue by Alan Bennett. Miss Foster, a spinster, has a new podiatrist. Well, Kate Jacobs, as Miss Foster, tells her sister and us about their weekly appointments.
have something to tell you. I'm pretty nervous about telling you, but I will. You remember when my feet hurt? Well, my doctor sent me to a podiatrist, a Mr. Dunderdale, retired but likes to keep his hand in, apparently. Refined-looking gentleman, 70-odd and with a lovely head of hair. He rested my feet on a silk handkerchief, which I thought was very civilized. And he said, "Well, Miss Fozzard, I look at these and I say to myself, well, here is someone who's on their feet a good deal. Am I right?" And I said, "You are. I'm in charge of soft goods at Ashley's, and anything you want in the way of drapes, you know where to come." He said, "Well, I may take you up on that, but in the meantime, may I compliment you on your choice of shoe?" And I said, "Well, I generally steer clear of suede because it is a bit high maintenance, but sometimes I think it's just worth it." He said, "Well, I can see we share a philosophy. Of course, the minute you walked in, I pegged you for a professional woman." I said, "Oh, no, how?" He said, "By your discreet choice of accessories." I said, "Well, I do favor a conservative approach to fashion. Classic, if you know what I mean." He said, "I do. Of course, the minute you walked in, I knew you were professional, but do you know why I chose the career of podiatry?" I said, "No, why?" He said, "So I could kneel at the feet of thousands of women and my wife would never turn a hair." Well, I said, "Oh, is there a Mrs. Dunderdale?" And he said, "There was, but she passed over." When he was finished, he rubbed my feet with oil. Oh, Moroccan, I think. And he said that my feet were in tip-top condition, the only possible cloud being a pre-fungal condition that he wanted to keep a very close eye on. Well, he had on a lovely cardigan, and I said, "I hope you won't mind my asking, but is that cardigan cashmere?" And he said, "Well spotted, Miss Fozzard. This may be the first time you're seeing it, but it won't be the last. May I offer you a sweet sherry?" He's church warden at St. Wilfrid's, pillar of the community, and nicely well off by the looks of it. When he was finished and we came to the door, he said, "Next time, if you're very, very good, I'll introduce you to the mysteries of the metatarsal arch." Well, the next appointment, it was a bit warmer, so I thought if I went along in my mustard-colored jacket, I could team it with my peep-toed sandals. Well, Mr. Dunderdale said he hadn't seen the likes of them in 15 years. He couldn't get over them. He said that by the support of the instep and the circulation of the toe, no more sensible shoe had ever been devised. Oh, he made me walk up and down in them. Would have taken a video if he could have found his camera. But anyway, I took them along so we could do it next time. Well, so then I started going weekly, and one day Mr. Dunderdale said, "Good news, Miss Fozzard. I think we have forestalled the fungus. I think that calls for a sherry refill, don't you? Oh, are you in a hurry to go?" I said, "No, why?" He said, "Well, I was hoping I could prevail upon you to try on a pair of booties." I said, "Booties?" He said, "Well, I use the term loosely. Technically, they're a fur-lined Gibson." I said, "Well, they are a lovely shoe." He said, "Oh, yes. Cozy, ankle-hugging. Oh, they make a beautiful end to the leg. Oh, they're a gift, of course." I said, "Oh, Mr. Dunderdale, I couldn't accept that.
He said, Miss Fawcett, these, my contacts in the world of footwear offer me a considerable discount. Besides, there's a little something that you could do for me in return. I said, I could? What? He said, well, the years of bending over ladies' feet have resulted in a painful condition of the lower back, which, if you are amenable, you have it in your power to alleviate. I said, I do? He said, you do, Miss Fawcett. Now, I'm going to put a cushion here on the floor for my head and a cushion for my abdomen, and what I want you to do is to step on my lower back. I said, well, do you want me to take off the booties? He said, no, 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 no. Leave the booties on. And he says, excellent, Miss Fawcett. You may move around a bit if you like. I said, well, I'm not anxious not to hurt you, Mr. Dunderdale. He said, no, no, never fear on that count. Trample away. So, I'm going with this, and I said, I feel like one of those French peasants treading on the grapes. And he says, yes, yes, yes. And I said, are you feeling the benefit? And he said, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes, yes, I do. So, in a bit, he says, thank you, Miss Fawcett. I think I'll just lie here for a little while, if you don't mind. Oh, I hope you could see yourself out, please. I left him there on the carpet. The next day, I wrote to Mr. Dunderdale, and I canceled all further appointments. So I didn't say why. I just said it wasn't practical. So I was back to normal again. I'd forgotten what those lonely nights are like. But anyway, I'm walking home from work one night, and up pulls this big brownie-colored car, and the window goes down, and below me, it's Mr. Dunderdale. He says, Miss Fawcett, could I tempt you up to my house? I'd like a little chat. I said, well, couldn't we just talk here? And he said, oh, no, not as I'd like. I can't park here. So I get in, and he drives me up there, and whatever else you can say about the man, he's a very accomplished driver. So he takes me in his study, sits me down, gives me the sherry, and says, why don't I want to come to see him anymore? Well, I didn't know what to say. So I said, well, Mr. Dunderdale, it's not as if I don't look forward to our appointments, but I can't, I can't afford to pay you. He said, well, let me make a suggestion. Why don't we reverse the arrangement? I said, come again. And then he said, you are a very unusual woman. And I said, I am? Why? And he said, because you're a free spirit, Miss Fawcett. You make up your own rules, and I'm the same. We are two alike, you and I, Miss Fawcett. Mavericks. Have you ever had champagne? I said, no, but I've seen it on the telly. He said, well, allow me. To our future. Well, it's all very decorous. Sometimes and oftentimes he makes a hot drink and we just sit and turn over the pages of his podiatry books. He buys me no end of shoes, and as I go out, there's a little envelope on the table. Nothing mentioned. Sometimes I wonder how this is all going to end. But I'll walk that plank when I get to it. And and one day I said to Mr. Dunderdale, you know, some people might think this is a little peculiar. And he said, well, they would be wrong, Miss Fozzard. We're just enthusiasts, you and I, and there's not enough enthusiasm in the world these days. Now, if those Wellingtons are quite comfy, what I'd like you to do in your own time, but as slowly as you like, mark time on my bottom. Well, it's funny, but, you know, the only casualty in all this is my feet, because the actual podiatry gets pushed to the side a bit nowadays. If I want a treatment, I have to really pin him down. We're still Mr. Dunderdale and Miss Fozzard, and I haven't told a soul. Still, people keep saying how good I look. Well, anyway, I know there is a word for what I'm doing, but I'll just skirt around it.
I think I need another drink. My poor sis. Well, we go from the fun to the serious. Gettysburg, a 1993 film about the 4 days prior to the battle. Gettysburg was the turning point in the war that proved that Lee could be defeated. It is now June 29th, 1863. The war has been raging for 2 years, and more than 500,000 soldiers have died. Colonel Joshua Lewis addresses his main regiment, as well as a group of mutineers from other disbanded Maine regiments and several escaped slaves. Lewis Marcus is Colonel Lewis.
Gentlemen, you know who we are and why we're here. Now, if you want to fight alongside of us, there are some things that I would like you to know. This regiment was formed last summer in Maine. There were 1,000 of us at that time. There are less than 300 of us now. All of us volunteered to fight for the Union, just as you did. Some of us came because we were bored at home and thought this looked like it might be fun. Some of us came because we were ashamed not to. Most of us came because it was the right thing to do. All of us have seen men die. But this is a different kind of an army. Throughout history, men have fought for pay, for women, or other kind of loot. They have fought for land, for power, or wherever a king leads them. Wherever a king leads them, or just because they like killing. But we are here for a different reason. This has not happened much before in the history of the world. This is an army out to set other men free. America should be free ground, all of it. Not divided by a line that separates free slaves from slave states and runs all the way from here to the Pacific Ocean. No man should have to bow. No man is bought into royalty. Here we judge you by what you do, not who your father was. Here you can be something. Here is a place to build a home. But it's not just the land, there's always more land. But it's the idea that each of us has value. You, me, all of us. And in the end, what are we fighting for? We're fighting for each other. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to preach to you. Listen, you talk it over amongst yourselves. Now, if you decide that you would like to fight along with us, and you want your muskets back, you can have them. And nothing more will be said about this by anyone anywhere. Now, those of you who choose not to come along with us, you can come with us under guard. And when this is over, I'll do what I can to see that you get a fair hearing. But for now, it's time to move out. Gentlemen, I think if we lose this battle, we will lose the war. Those of you who choose to come with us, I personally am very grateful.
Laughing Wild, a 1987 play by Christopher Durang. The man, played by Alex Brazda, is still trapped in anxiety and negativity despite months of cognitive behavioral therapy. Well, he's back for another session with his psychologist.
Come in.
You will not believe what happened to me this week. Out of the blue again. See, these things keep happening to me all the time. You think I'm turning into a schlemiel? Worse, a schlemazel. All this mishigas in my life, and I'm not even Jewish. Stay. Do you understand? I don't understand. Why me? Why always me? All this. Focus. Focus. Yes. Well, I was at the supermarket the other day, about to buy some tuna fish, when I sensed this very disturbed presence right behind me. So I thought, well, you should never look at a crazy person directly. So I thought, I'll just keep looking at these tuna fish cans, pretending to be engrossed in whether they're in oil or in water. And the person will go away. But instead, she shoved me with both hands and screamed, "Move!" Now, why did she do that? She hadn't even said, "Would you please move," at some initial point, so that I might have known what her problem was. Well, admittedly, I don't always tell people what I want either. Like the people in the movie theaters, you know, who keep talking and yak, talking and talking. I just give up and resent them. But on the other hand, I don't push them out of their seats and scream obscenities. I mean, animals. Looking at it in a positive light. This woman probably had some really horrible life story. Might have kind of explained how she got to this point in time, assaulting me in a supermarket. And perhaps, just perhaps, if her life since birth had been explained to me, I might have been able to have made some sense out of her action and how she got there. But even with that knowledge, which I didn't have, it was still my body she violated. And it is just so unfair. It is just so outrageous. It makes me want to never leave my apartment ever again. Breathe. Yes. Yeah. I am the predominant force of energy in my life. I let go of the pain from the past. I let go of the pain from the present. In my body, in those places where pain lived previously, like now, there is light and love and joy. Yeah, joy. It's about joy. Yes. Where there is no sunshine, be the sunshine. Yeah, great session. Thank you. Perfect. Next week, same time, same place.
Selection for today is a very, very loose adaptation of the film 51st Dates. You won't recognize it, I promise. Which was, the screenplay was by George Wing. Artie Rosenstein is the grandfather as he relates a family history that needs to be preserved for future generations.
Okay. The story of my grandparents. Your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents, and Allison, your great-great-great-grandparents. He was a political prisoner in Argentina. She was a human rights observer sent to interview him. When it was time for her to leave, he asked if he could look at her face for a while so that he could have something beautiful to remember during the long months ahead. He stared at her for a whole hour. 1 year later, she went back for a second interview. He reached under his bunk and showed her a little chip of wood. On this chip, he had painted my grandmother's face using a mixture of ashes and water for paint, and his own hair as a paintbrush. And yes, Allison, he did have a lot more hair than your great-grandpa has. He painted it from memory, but it was a perfect likeness of her. She looked at it, and then she looked at him. The moment their eyes met, they fell in love. For the next 3 years, they were only allowed to see each other once a year for just 2 hours. But they wrote the most amazing, beautiful, passionate letters every single day. And they really made those 2 hours count. Thanks to her efforts, my grandfather was finally released, and they moved to the United States, thank God. But every year, decade after decade, until they passed away within days of one another. Every year, they would spend a couple of weeks apart. And when they missed each other so much that they couldn't stand it, they would meet in a tiny hotel room for exactly 2 hours and relived the passion of their youth once again. To my grandparents, to the power and glory of love, their love, our family, may we never, ever forget them. L'chaim!
Ladies and gentlemen, Artie Rosenstein. Sheila Fialka. George Zilligan. Mary Zolli. Chris Knapp. Kate Jacobs. Louis Marcus. Alex Grasta. Lahai. Thank you all for being here tonight.